The Federal is organizing the Kanyakumari Mini Marathon 2024 to commemorate Mother's Day and Nurses Day this year on May 12. This event is sponsored by Repco Home Finance.
Hello and welcome to the Federal. Today we have a special guest, former Australian all-rounder Shane Watson with us. He has come out with his new book, The Winner's Mindset. Thanks, Shane, for talking to the Federal. Welcome to the show.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Shane, congratulations on your new book, The Winner's Mindset. Could you elaborate just as an introduction? Could you tell us what the book is about?
Yeah, look, I feel very fortunate to be able to have the opportunity to be able to launch my book into the Indian market that I've partnered with HarperCollins, who've been an incredible partner to be able to get this book out to the world. The Winner's Mindset is all around an education book, a mental skills education book on information that I was incredibly fortunate to be taught at the ripe old age of 34, just around how your mind works, good and bad, how we get in our ways, how we sabotage our own performances, but also on the flip side of that, how we have the control to be able to actually get out of our own way to be able to bring the very best versions of ourselves. And this information in the book is just all the information that I was so fortunate to be able to be taught, to be able to turn things around at a stage where I was on the brink of retiring at the age of 34 because my performances had reduced so drastically to a point where I was going to retire. But after learning this information, then as the first time that I really understood deeply how your mind works and the reason why you have certain thoughts and the things that you are in control of. And once I understood that, I was able to implement these skills very quickly and turn things around and have some of my best performances of my life and my career over the preceding 4 years.
Shane, I also read your book, the digital version, and the introduction. First line is, "I wish I knew then what I know now." So it is for everybody. It applies to not just cricket, for every sports person on every walk of life. Could you elaborate on that? Like we don't know so many things, and when we get to know, we would have thought the same thing as well.
No, that's exactly right, and that's I suppose the beauty of hindsight in life is you just wish you knew now what you knew then, and it's something that I wish I knew this information as a 15, 16-year-old, and it's because it was just a really simple to understand way of how to be able to bring the very best version of yourself with all the skills you work so tirelessly to be able to ingrain in yourself, and whether that's from a sporting perspective, whether that's from an intellectual perspective. It's in every aspect of life where we are performing and we're working incredibly hard and tirelessly to be able to develop specific skills. But then we want to be able to understand how to be able to access those skills and draw out those skills under pressure when we really need to perform. And that's where the mindset and having the correct mindset and understanding what the correct mindset is for you to be able to draw on all that knowledge and skills that you have when you are under pressure and you really need to perform. And that's the reason why I wrote this book, is to be able to get this information out to as many people as possible, because it is an essential life skill that most of us, we either find our way and understand how to just bring the best version of ourselves, or we don't, and we never really discover what that is, and we don't perform at our best more consistently.
And your first chapter is skill set versus mindset. So how's it like? Is it as we all know that sport is, most of them say it is all between the ears, like how the mind works. So you have elaborated on skill set versus mindset as well.
Yeah, so skill set versus mindset is the overarching broad concept around mental skills. And once I actually really understood, like, broadly that concept, it really just does really make you think about what your thoughts are and what your mental environment is. So the skill set side of things is what I just mentioned before, around all the skills you work so tirelessly. You spend the hours in ingraining it into your, like, movement patterns as a cricketer, for example, your bowling, your batting, your fielding skills, as someone who's learning new skills from an intelligence point of view. You work tirelessly to be able to ingrain this information so it's deep inside of you. So then you can just call on that knowledge or that skill at any time that you need to. So it's like muscle memory. So that's the skill set. The mindset is the mental environment around these skills sitting. And but we all know, whether it's ourselves or we've seen it with other people, when the pressure's not on. So for a cricket example, someone at training who is just a genius at training, they execute their skill, they bowl exactly where they want, they find the middle of the bat every single time that they train in the nets from a batting perspective. But when they come to a game and the pressure's on and they actually need to perform, it's like they've lost their skill. And you're like, who's this version at training when the pressure's off and there's no consequences to their execution? So now they come in game and there is consequences to their execution because they're out, or they make a mistake and they might get dropped, or they might not help their team get over the line to win. And they just become a totally different person. Those skills that we see are suffocated so badly, it looks like they've lost their skill. And like we know that in all different walks of life, whereas we go into a really important exam or a really important meeting and you've done all the preparation and you know all this information on call and on cue when you need it, but then you come into a performance where you actually need to bring all this information because it's critical for your future, and you just can't call on that information because your mental environment's been corrupted because of the wrong thoughts at the wrong time. So the mental environment which our skills sit is, the book is all around understanding what the correct mental environment is for you. So then you can bring all those skills you work tirelessly for, especially when the pressure's on and it's do or die. And that's what mental skills is all around, is just understanding how to bring the very best version of you in pressure situations.
And Shane, one of the lines I like very much is you have written that the next step in cricket's evolution will be training cricketers' minds. It's not the skill set, whether it's a lap shot or reverse sweep or switch hit. So could you tell us, like, do we need every team should have a mental conditioning coach, or as you mentioned, it will be training the cricketers' minds for the next level?
Yeah, we've really, in cricket, we've tapped into just about everything we possibly can when it comes to, from a technical perspective, and we've seen the evolution of technique even in the last 5 years, and where that's at. And we've got so many experts around technique throughout the world in cricket. We've got the fitness, the strength and conditioning side of things has really evolved over the last 10 years, getting experts in to produce the best physical athletes that we can in cricket. And that's nutritionists and all that sort of thing as well. But the one aspect that we've only just really scratched the surface is from a mental skills and mental performance perspective. It really is in the infancy in cricket. And we all know from cricket in general is talked about is that 90%, 85, 90% of the game is played up in your mind. But we actually spend very minimal time, if no time, on the mental side of the performance in cricket. So this is where this understanding, this education of these really simple concepts, mental skills concepts, are critical to implement from a younger age. So you're developing high quality mental skills habits. So then it just becomes you. That's just who you are. You haven't got default bad habits, which I had a lot of them, that you just turn to, especially when things don't go to plan and they don't go well, and you have some bad performances. So that's where having the right mental skills coaches and the right mental skills information will be, I think, is definitely not, I know is going to be the next evolution for cricket, is implementing the right information from a younger age. So then when these cricketers become professional cricketers and they're having to perform on the international stage, or they're having to perform in the IPL stage, they've got a deep understanding and the habits, the really good habits of mental skills performance. So their ability to tap in to all those skills, whether it's a final of the IPL or the final of a World Cup, or whether it's just a practice session, they can turn on their skills whenever they need to.
Shane, you just mentioned about inculcating mental conditioning coaching at a very young age. What do you think? Like in India, we have now it's the summer season and school holidays are there, and there are a lot of cricket coaching camps going on. What do you think is the right age when They only focus on the cricket technique skills. What is the right age for the youngsters to inculcate this as well, like mental, how they should approach the game mentally? They're fit and they're consistent, and their confidence level is up.
Yeah, there's no question that like step one is to continue to develop your technical skills to be the best that you possibly can be. Because you could have the best mental skills in the world, but if your cricket skills aren't up to scratch, then you're not going to perform. It's as simple as that. Your A game that you bring is nowhere near good enough. So so
Right.
you're going to get exposed consistently. So yeah, absolutely. There's no secret to be a very good cricketer. You need to train your technical skills and develop those to be as good as they possibly can. Then with the mental skills side of things, it's around the age of 14 and 15 where you start to really understand and grasp these very simple concepts. And once you start at 14 or 15 to implement these mental skills habits, that's when, before you know it, by the time you get to your late teens, you've implemented these mental skills, and it's your habit of thought. That's just who you are. That's how you're able to continue to redirect your mind to the right thoughts at the right time to be able to access all those skills that you've got right there and then to the very best of your ability. So yes, we've got summer camps and summer cricket camps. We've got that all around the cricket world, and I know it's a huge thing in India.
Right.
The technical skills, of course, are really important, but at the same time, there needs to be a mental skills program that's implemented there, because there's no point doing all this technical skill and this technical work when the individuals can't access those skills in game, when they actually need to perform, when they're positioning the teams on the line, when it's a knockout game and they need to be able to perform. So that's where the mental skills education perspective and part needs to be implemented into these training camps, these school holiday camps. So then all the skills that you're developing, you're using them regularly, and especially in game when there are consequences to your execution.
And one of the chapters is also about team environment. What does a high performing team environment really look like? And you have been one of the greats of the Australian teams. You have been there in the dressing room. Australia is known to be the best whenever in crunch situations. You just mentioned about knockout game. Australia, whenever there's a knockout game, they raise their game up. And what does that team environment mean, like Australian? Or maybe you have played, you have also written about the team environment in IPL as well with the CSK, Chennai Super Kings, and under the leadership of MS Dhoni.
Yeah, I'll start with the Australian team, and I was like so incredibly fortunate to be able to come into the Australian squad in Australian cricket at the age of 20, and so I was educated on the way to play from a really young age, and the way to be able to bring your skills consistently under pressure. And that's the one thing that Ricky Ponting always talked about in team meetings, and especially in a big game, in a knockout game, in a World Cup final, or a Champions Trophy final, or an Ashes. And he always talked about the individuals and teams that perform best in pressure games are the ones who do the basics better for longer. So
Right.
they just continue to stay true to the basics and just do it better for longer. Whereas pressure situations and pressure games can make human beings do some crazy things and do things that are outside of what they normally would do. And that's the fundamentals is the reason why the Australian cricket team has always been able to just take away what the actual situation is and just break it down to what do I need to do right now to be able to execute my basics and my fundamentals and my technique to the best of my ability. So that's just what I sort of got brought up in. And you see that in the Australian team and the culture that's just always you get educated on. You can see that of recent times in the one day World Cup for Australia in the final,
Right,
their
right.
ability to just be able to break their skills down and just perform and execute those under pressure, the fundamentals, they just were able to do it more consistently under pressure. So that's from the Australian team perspective. From the CSK perspective, the one thing that CSK never ever talk about, MS Dhoni and Stephen Fleming, is about we need to win today. because
Right.
we
You have
know
mentioned it.
that
You have written that in the book. I read it. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Everyone knows that it's a knockout game. Everyone knows that it's an important game. Without even thinking about it, you're aware of the situation. But when leaders actually talk about it more, and well, if we lose today, then we're going home, or you need to win today, then the stress and anxiety and worry around performance and the worry and the fear of failure really starts to come in. Oh, what if I don't perform well today? What if I don't do this and we lose? The best teams and the best leaders, they never mention that at all. It's all around. We need to bring our best skills, our basics. We need to bring those the best that we can and do it from ball one, ball after ball until the end. And if we do that because of the talent that we have in our squad, then we're a great chance of falling on the right side of the result. And that totally reduces the stress and anxiety and pulls that out of the environment. So people are free to bring the best version of themselves. And that's something that MS Dhoni has done so incredibly well when he led the Indian team for a long period of time and then with CSK. And that's the reason for me why there's no secrets why the teams that MS Dhoni has led have had a crazy amount of success, because he's allowed the individuals to not sabotage their own performance because of the fear of failure that's been built up in a team environment because of the actions through selection or from the words from the leaders to say you need to perform, otherwise we're gone.
Right. Shane, you also written about under the title "New Age Distractions: Social Media,"
Mm,
and you have written how you didn't for a long time you were not on social media and you took the plunge and you came. And you also mentioned faceless trolls who have pass on nasty comments when your performance is down. How does that affect like new age distractions? How do cricketers or any sports person deal with such distractions on social media?
yeah, well, it really just comes down to how much sacrifice are you willing to, what sacrifices you're willing to make to be the best performer that you possibly can. And there's no question that the new age distractions, one is social media, and there's obviously upside to it, and there's confidence building which people can tap into when they've had a good performance, which builds them up actually bigger than what they are. But the downside is the negative comments that are always going to pop up here and there, and it really just comes down to how desperate are you to bring the best that you can and create the right environment around you to be able to perform at your very, very best. And the distractions of social media, whether that's actually just the overstimulation of scrolling through social media, one of the biggest epidemics that I've seen in the world, and especially in the cricket world, is mental fatigue, because there's so much overstimulation of the human mind, and social media is a huge part of that, and the devices are a huge part of that. Is we need as much mental energy to be able to bring all the skills that we've got so deeply ingrained in our decision making, the very best decision making, to the fore in our performances. But if we're mentally fatigued, then our ability to be able to actually produce and pull out all those skills that are deeply ingrained in our decision making to be absolutely precise is significantly reduced. And I've seen that so consistently, and I believe, and I will believe, I know that it is one of the biggest issues in world cricket right now, is the
Right.
distractions that are around the overstimulation of the human mind, and players are going into games mentally fatigued. And the players who actually don't go in, they're the ones who are more consistently able to perform at their very, very best, because of their understanding of how to be able to bring the very best version of themselves, have all the mental energy they need to be able to make precise decisions very quickly under pressure.
And Shane, you also, the book ends with lessons from cricketing greats such as Kevin Peterson, Alan Border, Rahul Dravid, Lisa Stalekar, Sir Vivian Richards, Matthew Hayden, Brett Lee, Ricky Ponting, A.B. de Villiers, Justin Langer. They've all written good things, and you all mentioned like how they have succeeded. So could you just throw light on them, the cricketing greats, how they helped you, and how the youngsters can learn from them through your book?
Yeah, I was very fortunate to be able to do a podcast called Lessons Learnt with the Greats, which was a podcast that covered a lot of different topics around these legends and what worked for them from a technical perspective with their cricket, from a mental skills perspective, and other parts of their life as well. And the the case studies in the winner's mindset is is all around their mental skills side of them as cricketers and what really worked for them, and then tying it back into the concepts in the book. So, for example, AB de Villiers, who is one of the modern great players, and we've seen him all the things, the supernatural things he's able to do on the field. And the one thing that he really tapped into was creating like a movie around him being like Superman, the superhero in the movie. And this is just building up his confidence to be able to step into every performance to bring the very best that he possibly can. We all know that when we are super confident, that's the very best version of ourselves. And AB de Villiers just knew how to be able to visualize and just turn himself into the superhero in his movie, and do that so consistently throughout his career. And that is all around the visualization and imagery, which is so incredibly powerful as for us as individuals to be able to then bring that version of ourselves into our next performance and do that over and over again. So there's so many, the beauty of learning from these legends is they all had their own unique way, that thing that they really used and tapped into to bring the very best version themselves. But it all correlates into this mental skills information that is in the book. For example, one technique that Sir Vivian Richards used to be able to stay fully present when he was out in the middle was chewing on his chewing gum.
Right.
That was his way of getting present. Tapping his bat with the actual rhythm of him chewing his gum was a way for him to become back to the very present, to be able to then just make sure he has no preconceived ideas about what's happening, just to watch the ball and react. Other people have a song in their head, like Glenn McGrath used a song in his head to be able to pull himself back, to have an anchor to pull himself back. Alan Border used his breathing and his breath to be able to bring him back to the very present. So it's been able to learn from all these different legends of the various little things that they use that was so incredibly important and powerful for them to bring the very best version of themselves much more consistently than everyone else, all the other mere mortals.
Thanks a lot, Shane. Wishing you the best for your book, and let all the youngsters read and succeed in not only in cricket, other sports as well.
I really appreciate it. It's great to chat to you. Thanks for the great questions.
The Federal is organizing the Kanyakumari Mini Marathon 2024 to commemorate Mother's Day and Nurses Day this year on May 12. This event is sponsored by Repco Home Finance.
Subscribe to the Federal's YouTube page for more news and updates.